Hi guys, this is Steve Moss, pastor at Boulevard Christian Church. God's mission for us here at Boulevard is really simple. We help people find Jesus and we help people follow Jesus. And our teaching team hopes that this message that you're about to listen to will help you learn to grow and trust Him more than before. If it does, would you consider giving a gift to Boulevard to help us carry out the mission that God has given us? Thanks. We hope your heart is fully open to what God has for you in this message today.
So we've all had moments in our parenting where we've felt a little pushback, right? Where we've tried to accomplish something we needed to accomplish or felt we needed to accomplish. One of our more daunting parental moments for me came when we were raising our sons, and our son Tyler was our third son, and he was about 3. Now you would expect a daunting parental moment to happen when they're teenagers. We had some of those too. But this happened when he was about 3, and the image is still very vivid in my mind. We were sitting in the kitchen where we ate our family meal, and he was in the high chair, and I was sitting there in front of him, bending over, feeding him, or attempting to feed him. And we were having green beans. If you know me, that is one of my top 5 foods in the whole world. I love good cooked green beans, all right? And so I just expected my son to like green beans. And 2, I knew that there was incredible nutrition value in those green beans. And so I would take the green bean and cut it in 2, whatever, and I would put it in his little mouth. And about 3.2 seconds, all right, that little green bean would just pop right back out of his mouth at me. And I did this again, and about 3.2 seconds later, the green bean just literally just like a little punk right there. You could almost hear it, you know. And he wasn't fussing, he wasn't mad or whatever, he just wasn't doing the green beans. And we tried this a couple times, and as a parent, you go, well, I'm drawing the line. I'm winning this one. But I didn't. And there was not only in that situation, I would say a pushback, but actually kind of a push out. And he wasn't having it. And it was hard for me because 1, I wanted him to like green beans, but 2, that I knew there was nutritious value in that, and I knew he needed the nutritious value of those green beans. And this morning, I'm a little bit in that situation. My primary role, really, with you all is as a shepherd is to help you have what you need, the nutrition necessary for you to grow in your spiritual lives. And there's times when I can give you things and you go, I like that, and I'm just going to go with it. And there's other times that we may have to talk about things that there may be a little push out or a little pushback. And so today and the next couple of weeks may be a couple of those times, just kind of prepping you a little bit, all right? We're starting a 3-week series we are calling Learning to Live Generously. Learning to live generously. And it is going to be 3 weeks. The first week is today, and I'm just going to share with you pretty simply one single thing you need to know. One single thing, all right? Now, I'm going to take 35 minutes to do it because that's what preachers do, all right? But I'm just going to share with you one single thing you need to know. Jim's going to be talking to you next week on something I'm just going to call the tale of 2 churches. That's not actually the name of his sermon, but I thought it sounded good, okay? It's going to be close to that. 2 different churches he will share with you about. The third week, I'm just going to share some practical tips that you and I can do to better place ourselves where we can become more generous in our living and giving. And here is the goal. Here's the goal today. The goal is this. For us, for you and I, to take one single step in the direction of living with a more generous heart. Now, that's my goal. I believe it's God's goal. Your goal is to come back. Okay? And I mean that because, I just want to be honest with you and know this is hard when we start talking about giving and generosity. That's a hard thing. And there's naturally a little bit, for whatever reason, there's naturally a little pushback and sometimes in our hearts. And it would be easy for you to say, next Sunday, I think I'm feeling a little fluish right now. It may occur next Sunday sometime. I think next Sunday I think I'm going to paint the exterior of the house next Sunday morning. I think that possibly, I'm thinking about maybe watching the Cornhole Championship on TV next week. There will be things that come up to you that you could find an excuse not to be here next couple of weeks. That's what we're saying, all right? And so, man, if you would just kind of like right now go, okay, however painful this might seem or be or awkward, I'm going to be here, all right? That's your decision, all right? So here's the deal. Why are we preaching this series? Well, here's honestly, because some of us are generous, but most of us aren't living generously. Ouch. I know that hurts a little bit. And that's not my intention, really. But some of us have, we have given $20 to a homeless person, a month and a half or a year and a half ago. And so we like to think that's, well, I'm generous, I did that. Or we kind of like to think, man, if I see a need, if I had a whole lot of money, man, I would just give so much. But the someday really never particularly comes. Here's a stat I just found this last week. 1/3 to 1/2 of church members, not Boulevard, but overall, give anything to their church. 1/3 to 1/2. In America, in 2022, Americans gave, get this, 1.7 to 2% to charities. Man, that kind of hurts, and it says, we like to think we're generous, but realistically, we're really not, most of us. And please hear this. As your pastor and as your friend, I want you to know this is a tough subject. And I want you to know also that I am a person who struggles with generosity. It is not in my nature to be generous. And we'll talk about that more in a couple of weeks, because I do want to be honest with you. And I know this is a tough subject. And I know it can be awkward. And I know that some of you are kind of reeling a little bit, and maybe you're a little bit defensive. Maybe you have been in a service or a church like someone I talked to just recently where, man, the pastor just kind of took the giving, and that was kind of like, that was his, all right? And maybe you have seen abuses in spending in some of the churches. Maybe you have seen irresponsibility. I don't know what it is, but there's a defensiveness in you. If you are a guest for the first or second time here, just hang in there with us, all right? Hang in there with us, all right? I'm always reminded of the family who came several years ago when I decided to be really clear on what adultery was. And their eyes were just like this big, all right? So hang in there if you're a guest with us. My desire is not to shame you. Please believe that. But to show you what God has for us when we live generously. And here's the cool thing. Here's the cool thing. Here's why I can stand here today and share with you and not shrink back and not apologize. We're talking about these things. One, because please know, if you are a guest, this is a family of believers. This is a family of believers that allows our preaching team to communicate the truth. I would go past that. It not only allows, they desire it. We find that the more tougher issues we talk about, our people go, hey, thanks, I needed that. I love that about our people. Absolutely, absolutely. Second thing is, I believe that you desire to live generously. I believe that we desire that. But there's some things that hold us back from it. I got this card from someone in our church. Don't even know who it was. Last week with $15 in it. And in it, the person said, I know this won't get you to the beach, all right? She knows I love the beach. But maybe it'll buy you lunch. Isn't that cool? $15. And then I realized that the same person, I think, had done that with several other staff members. I love that. Generosity comes in small and large packages. Another reason that I can talk about that is because I know, and this is important for you to hear, that our leadership are men of integrity. I know what is planned when we go into the budget, how much that we try to be conscientious in that there is a fiscal responsibility for that. I've got a friend right now who's probably in his pulpit, and I know his elders have not practiced integrity in the use of the church funds. And I am grateful, I will tell you, that I can stand right here and tell you that our elders are men who have integrity in their lives, and that integrity is practiced in the responsibility and finances of this church. You can trust that. You can go to the bank on that. And the last one is this, most important of all. Because our mission, folks, is to find Jesus and follow Jesus. Our mission, more specifically, is to help broken people find Jesus and follow Jesus. And there is not a more important or vital mission on the face of the earth. So I have no problem. I have no problem coming and saying to this family of believers, folks, let's be generous so that we can accomplish the mission that God has for our church. And I get to watch. And I wish you could be behind me. We get to watch every single day people whose lives have been transformed and are transformed because of your generosity. And sometimes it's not exciting. Sometimes your generosity just keeps the lights on, but it's so that we can have a city group or a Bible study. Sometimes it's because so we can put gas in a van to go pick people up the Gospel Rescue Mission who are broken and need Jesus. Sometimes it's to send a 5th grader or a 10th grader to camp where they can hear the message of Jesus. That's what your generosity is doing. And man, when we get to stand and watch that, I am grateful for that. It's accomplishing our mission. Now, let me just say, get right to it. When it comes to our hearts and our generosity, there are essentially 2 types of people, not 3. There are 2. 1, when it comes to generosity, there are people who give what's left over. And when it comes to generosity, there are people who give off the top, what the scriptures would call first fruits, and they live then on what is left over. So the first question that you and I have to answer together is, do I give what's left over, or do I give off the top and live on what's left over? Tough question. Now, don't tighten up on me, okay? I can feel people pushing back a little bit, all right? Let's talk. See, the first group, those who give off the leftovers aren't necessarily greedy. It's not always the case. They just have this different mindset. Remember about 3 or 4 weeks ago, we talked about mindset and how our mindset and our thoughts, our beliefs shape our actions, and then our actions then reinforce and shape our thoughts, which shape our actions, and you get this cycle going in our life. And they themselves believe. They see themselves as responsible for meeting their own needs. That's what they believe. I'm responsible for meeting my needs. So what's left can be given. And one of the problems with giving leftovers is that your generosity can never exceed your ability to meet your own needs and desires. So what happens? What happens when the rubber meets the road? If there's prosperity, well, then there's some leftovers that can be given, right? But if there's any kind of financial insecurity, any kind of storms that you feel like you're in or coming your way, if there's any costs coming up, vacations coming our way, something might break down, then generosity takes a back seat. Now, I'm told you I want to be honest, and so I'm going to be really honest. About years ago, summer giving always drops. Drops significantly. Years ago, we had our bookkeeper, and the story's true, that our giving was so bad in the month of June that he literally took the bills, he put them in his hand like cards. He walked into James McCracken's office, who was senior pastor at that time, and he said, choose 2. Those are the 2 that'll be paid. The other 3 will remain unpaid. That's where we're at. And I will just say that to this day, we know when we get to summertime, giving is going to drop, not a little bit, but sometimes dramatically. Not sure exactly why that is, except maybe we're looking forward and going, no, we got costs coming up, we got vacation. I don't know. But I will tell you, do you know this? That actually as a church, what we're doing here, our costs go up considerably in the summertime. Our utility bills for this 90,000 square foot building. We still have ministry going on here. We still have to keep the lights on and the air conditioner on. We have camps that we have to pay for kids. We have to put gas in the buses as they go to take kids to conferences. We do more outreach in the summertime, which demands more resources, and yet giving always plummets considerably. The more your heart has to be occupied with the burden of meeting your own needs, the less it can respond to God's spontaneous promptings and be consistent regardless of the financial weather forecast. So see, what's the difference between these folks in the first group who give out of their leftovers and those in the second group who give off the top? Here it is. You ready? All right. One thing. What those who give off the top, first fruits, get. Here it is. It's all his. It's all his. He owns and he controls everything. And because they understand this, they have the freedom to invest in his interest and his mission first, trusting him to meet their needs after they give. Friends, if you and I believe that we own it and that we are responsible to meet our needs, it will always be irrational to give with consistency. It will always be irrational if we believe that that's the way it is. If we believe it's all his, it's irrational not to give off the top. So there's this young couple that I read about this last week, and they actually support generously one of the ministries that Boulevard actually supports. And here's a question that was asked them. The question was, what compels you to give? And here's what this young guy's answer was, probably 34, 35 years old. He says this: we have a conviction, there's the belief, that we share as part of our faith that this is not ours. You are released then from the control of money that can take over people's hearts and soul. We are not chained by that. See, the honest truth is when you and I are living in leftover giving land, we are chained to the what ifs. Fear-driven. What ifs? What kind of what ifs? What if the interest rate changes? Well, what if inflation picks up? What if the car breaks down? Those what ifs, and they can drive us. And when you get ready to even think about giving, those what ifs, man, you've had them just like I have. We've lived in our house 22 years. We still have the same central air conditioning unit. Every year in the spring, I just tell Dawn, here it comes, baby. We're trying to save back, and this last year our air conditioning savings got spent on a knee replacement for Dawn, and so you think you're almost there, and I think it was like 137 that day, and Dawn calls me and goes, hey, the air conditioner's not working. I was like, oh, here it is, Jesus. 10 grand, baby, come on. And I happened to have a neighbor who's an HVAC guy and another guy in our church who's an HVAC guy, and they came over and just looked at it, and the neighbor comes over, and he's standing, and he looks at it and goes, oh, I know what that is. That the capacitor is out. Well, that doesn't tell me nothing. I don't know if I'm in it for 10 or 10 grand at that point in time. It gets better. The other guy comes, and he goes, yeah, you don't have one capacitor out. You got 2 capacitors out, all right, okay? The Oklahoma accent is mine, all right, okay? I still don't know what I'm in for. $150. Now, they bless their hearts, they gave of their time, all right? And that was kind. That was another blessing from the Lord. $150. Now, are you saying it'll never break down? No. There's a time, and I'm trying to be wise and put some money back, but sometimes that gets eaten up, all right? And so it'll come, I know. But for the time, it wasn't 10 grand, it was $150. And so that what if that would have kept me from giving, God took care of that. And so here's the deal. You'll only be able to experience the joy of generous living that God has for you when you believe that it is all his. Okay? Now, let me just stop and say, I know most of you have heard the sermons. I know that you have read the scripture. I know that you have probably, like me, felt the promptings of the Holy Spirit in your heart to give. And so I just want to do something for just right now. I'm going to ask if you'll do this with me. Would you just close your eyes for a moment. Just close your eyes. And the first thing I want us to do is just answer honestly between you and Jesus. Which group are you in? Are you giving leftovers? Or are you giving off the top and allowing God to take care of you? And what is your primary what if right now? So would you take a deep breath in and consider your primary what if right now? Breathe in, a deep breath. And let's breathe out, and I want to read this over you. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell therein. Breathe in, inhale another what if, another fear. What if this breaks? What if this goes? What if this comes? And breathe out. As I read over you Haggai 2:8, the silver is mine and the gold is mine, declares the Lord. Inhale. Inhale another fear and then release it. As I read to you Psalm 50, verse 10, for every beast of the field is mine, and the cattle on 1,000 hills. And Leviticus 25 says, as we inhale yet another what if and release it, the land shall not be sold, for the land is mine. You are strangers and sojourners with me. You can open your eyes. Folks, God says it's all mine. It's all his. A friend of mine I was talking to the other day read these passages to me. And he said, look, Steve, God says it's all mine. The gold mines, the silver mines, the cattle on 1,000 hills is mine. Everything is mine. That pretty much covers it, he says. And it does. Everything you are and everything you have is his. Your house may be by the bank, may be owned by the bank, or may be owned by you, but it's his. And your car is his. And your kids are his. And your savings account and whatever you might have in retirement, his. And great-grandma's dresser, his. All right? He owns it all. He owns it all. He owns everything in vast storehouses. Now, I told you there's only one point, and I lied. Okay? We have to do that sometimes. There's actually a second one. I want you to know it's tied closely to the first, that not only is it all his, but that he has a desire, the God who created you. The Father's heart's desire is to take care of you. Not just the person on your right or your left because they're better, they got it together or whatever, to take care of you. That's your Father's heart's desire. I want you to close your eyes again to allow yourself to imagine some of the imagery that we find in these scriptures. Psalm 145 says, the eyes of all look to you. We're looking to him, and you give them their food in due season. You, what beautiful imagery. Open your hand. You satisfy the desire of every living thing. The Lord is near to all who call on him. To all who call on him in truth, he fulfills the desires of those who fear him. Paul will tell a church in Philippi, my God will supply every need of yours according to his riches and glory in Christ Jesus. And Jesus says, for life is more than food, and the body more than clothing. Consider the ravens. They don't sow or reap. They have neither storehouse nor barn, yet God feeds them. And how much more value are you than the birds? He will clothe you. He will clothe you, O you of little faith. And your Father knows, Jesus says, that you need these things. Instead, you seek his kingdom, and these things will be added to you. Fear not, little flock. It's your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. you can open your eyes. We are his little flock. And he is a tender, loving shepherd who happens to have the resources of everything in the world at his fingertips and the desire to take care of you. See, there really are only two types of people when it comes to generous living. Those who give what's left over and those who give from the top first fruits. And the key is you and I actually believing and acting on that it's all his, everything, and that he desires to provide for our needs. Sat down with some friends yesterday, and I knew there were people who were generous. I knew that. I went to their table. I called them and said, can we talk? And I wanted them to talk with me about generous living and what it looks like, because I know they experience that. They live that way. And I'm going to be really honest with you. I drove into their driveway, and they have a beautiful home. And they have nice cars. Now, it's easy for you and I to say at that point in time, well, that's easy to give, right? They've got plenty. Yeah. And then they started talking. And they told me the stories of their early days. And I wrote down these as quotes. We had nothing. He had a pickup that you had to open the hood up and do some special things, and say some special prayers to get it to even start so he could drive it every single time. And there were times that there was no food in the freezer or whatever, no food, no meat, and he got up one day when he had strep throat just to go out in the very, very cold temperatures, just to kill a deer so they would have some meat to eat. Not just once. This is kind of regular living. They're kind of like the Israelites who just really got tired of having manna day after day and year after year. She said, I've had venison every way you can do venison. I get sick if I even look at it now. But they found the key in their young adulthood when they had nothing. And the key was, it's all his. And they began to give off the top, even at a time when they had nothing to give. When she was a young wife and a young mother, and she said this, I would wonder, where are we going to get it? And then she said, we always got it. And now we always get it. God always provides. And I heard him say, something I'd heard him say 100 times before, as I have gone to him many times and said, we got a single parent who really has a need. We have a family who cannot do Christmas. Can you help? And he always does. They always do. And he said over and over to me, Steve, you cannot outgive God. I have tried. And they know they have been richly blessed. They know that. But they also said, and I quote, blessings don't always have a dollar value on them. The intangibles are the real blessings. And they made a decision to believe the key that it's all his and move from giving leftovers to giving from the top when they had nothing to give. Trusting God to provide has changed their lives. And they'd be the very first to tell you. I'll tell you, there was an immense amount of joy at that table as they talked about learning to give from the top. Those people live and they move and they speak with joy. And they know their generosity has changed the hearts and lives of other people and their own lives. I shared with you earlier that we can speak about these things that are a little awkward sometimes because of our mission. And that living generously impacts the lives of others. I would like you to watch this couple-minute video, if you would, for me.
Hey friends at Boulevard, this is Drew Moss, and I am standing here at the Table Campus Ministry in Stillwater, Oklahoma, where my wife Amy and I have served students at Oklahoma State University for about 16 years now. We are supported by Boulevard along with some other churches and individual givers and donors from all over the country. And the generosity of God's people is really something that has been big for us, because the people that we try to minister to, college students, they're not able to support this ministry in and of themselves. They don't have full-time jobs, so we're dependent on the giving of other people in order to be able to do this ministry. And when I think about the generosity of God's people and what that has allowed us to be able to do, my mind kind of goes in two directions. First, I think of just the activities that it allows us to do. The giving of people enables us every Thursday night to feed between 160 and 180 college students who come to this building and move into the backyard, and we feed them, and then we have a Bible study with all of them every week. The giving of God's people allows us to go on retreats like we did just this last weekend, where we took 100 students away to learn about emotionally healthy spirituality and what it means to grow up in Jesus. It allows us to take students on missions trips where they get exposed to God's heart and his passion for the world. So I think about all these activities that generosity enables us to do, but I also think of names. I think of Vinny Stiles, who came to hear the gospel here at the table last year, and just a couple weeks ago we got to baptize him, and he's just on fire for Jesus right now, growing in incredible ways. I think of Rachel Madden, who came here as a student and then felt like God was putting it on her hearts to go into vocational ministry. And so now she's not only come through this ministry, but now she's here working at OSU, reaching other students with the gospel. I think of Bo and Sharisa, who came to the table and encountered God's heart for the world, and then went off and started working in Salt Lake City for the specific purpose of helping a church plant in one of the most unchurched cities in America. I tell our team all the time that we are so fortunate, because we essentially get a front row seat to what God is doing in students' lives, and to get to see that is such an amazing thing. I can't believe that I get to be a part of something like this, and it's possible because of the generosity of God through people like you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Hey friends at Boulevard, this is Drew.
Now, some of you all know that is actually Dawn and I's oldest son, Drew, and I hesitated at first even showing it because he was our son, but I will tell you this. What I know is kind of the backstory and the front story, and that is, the back end is last week or a couple weeks ago, I was there in Stillwater for a grandparents' day, and Drew came home from the table that night. They had over 200 college kids at the college ministry that night, over 200. And then here's the front end of that. The front end is this. Our boys have grown up in this church. When Drew was 16 and we said, hey, we're putting our money towards college, we can't buy you a car, somebody gave him an 87 Chevette. Now, it was worth about $200, but it got him through high school. And then someone said, hey, if you'll work really hard, because I know you want to go to college, I will match all the money that you save back. Said that to Drew. Someone helped, a lot of you all helped he and the team be our first team ever to go to the island of Cyprus to do ministry there. What I'm saying is this. There was an investment and sacrificial generosity that went into that young man's life that I happen to know well, that ever even allowed him to get to the place where he is right now, and their team doing the ministry that is happening now. That's what happens when we practice generosity in the small and the big ways consistently. That's what happens. So the key is this. Take this one home. It's all his. Let's say that together. It's all his. That's right. And he promises to provide for you out of his riches. Now, here's the goal and the challenge for this 3 weeks. Please listen real carefully. That you will take one step towards more generous living. That your what if might change to this. What if Jesus came into your living room and poured himself a cup of coffee? There's always coffee. What if he did that and said, I own it. I'm going to take care of you. I want you to trust me. Begin giving today from the top. Let that be your new what if. This ladder is here for a reason, because what we want to do, we want to challenge you to take a specific step. Some of you have never encountered giving before, and that's okay. We're just asking you to hear what Jesus is saying to you that might prompt you to begin giving for the very first time. And so we're challenging us as a congregation to begin giving for 90 days and test God's faithfulness to see that if he might come and bless you, we know that he will, tangibly or not so, all right? If you've never given before, we're going to challenge you to take one step towards giving. If you've given, we're going to encourage you and pray for you that you will increase some amount or some percentage consistently for the next 90 days. If you give consistently, but have never given a biblical tithe, we're going to encourage you and challenge you. And we are praying for you that you might step into believing it's all his and give something you've never thought before, the biblical tithe of 10%. All right? Now, everybody found a card. We're not asking you to respond. We do not want you to respond today. Okay, here's what's important. This card has a signature at the bottom. Take it home. Place it before you and ask God to begin speaking to you. Share what you are thinking with another believer. Read scriptures about giving and generosity. Next week, there's going to be another card in your chair. We just want to make sure that everyone has one. The third week, you will find 2 cards. One like this with a signature. We're not interested in you filling this out and with the signature and giving it to us. That's between you and Jesus. We would like you to sign it on the 3rd week, indicating what level of giving you are going to step into as you accept this challenge, all right? But the signature is between you and God. There will be another card, the same card without a place for the signature. We're asking that you fill both out. You take the one home with the signature, leave one for us. We'll have boxes at the back, only because we are praying that 25 people will begin to give for the very first time. We are praying that 25 people will increase their giving. And we are praying that 25 people will give a tithe for the first time so that you can begin to understand for the first time in your heart, like you have never understood, that it is his and he will provide, all right? Friends, man, let's believe that he is who he says he is, and he will do what he says he will do. Let's stand and worship this morning.